What if a single Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket could be worth more than a brand new car or even a house? Most people spend these coins without a second thought, but hidden among ordinary change are rare Lincoln pennies struck by mistake, produced in tiny numbers, or tied to historic moments. From a penny that should have been steel but turned out copper, two coins with doubled letters U can spot with the naked eye. These small pieces of metal have sold for thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. The real question is, have you already held one and never knew it?
Imagine holding a small copper coin that silently witnessed America on the brink of the 1960s, a decade of change, revolution, and history. A coin that many people once ignored in their pockets, yet today has collectors searching every corner of their coin jars for one simple reason: it's not just a penny, it's a time capsule. The 1960 Lincoln cent tells a story of minting mistakes, double dates, rare varieties, and the evolution of American coinage that forever changed how the United States Mint struck its coins and how collectors viewed the smallest denomination. This is the untold story of the 1960 Lincoln penny, its birth, its variations, its secrets, and why this tiny 1-cent piece still fascinates the coin world more than 6 decades later. Now let's travel back in time to the year 1960, a year of new beginnings for America. Dwight D. Eisenhower was still president. John F. Kennedy was preparing his run for the White House, and the United States Mint was operating at full strength, producing billions of Lincoln cents. But 1960 would not be just another year. In the long history of the Lincoln penny, it would become one of the most talked about years in numismatic history. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had already become an American icon by 1960. The wheat reverse design that had graced the cent for 50 years had been replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959, symbolizing the new era and marking the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. So when 1960 arrived, the Lincoln Memorial cent was still new, fresh, and filled with pride, but nobody could have predicted that this year would produce one of the most fascinating varieties. In American coin history, the 1960 small date and large date Lincoln cents. In early 1960, the Philadelphia Mint began producing the new Lincoln Memorial cents, with a date design that had a slightly different look. The numbers were smaller, especially the 0, which appeared higher and thinner. This first version would later become known as the 1960 small date Lincoln cent. Soon after production began, Mint officials decided that the date was too small and difficult to read, so they made a new, hub design with a larger, clearer date. The result was the 1960 large date Lincoln cent. This change might sound small, but for collectors it opened an entire new world of discovery and value, because both versions were struck in large quantities, and both entered circulation in the same year. The Philadelphia Mint struck both the small and large date varieties, and so did the Denver Mint, which produced coins with the D Mint mark below the date. However, the 1960 D small date penny became particularly famous among collectors not just because of the size difference, but because of an extraordinary minting phenomenon that created one of the most spectacular double die varieties ever seen. The 1960 D over D small date double die penny. This rare error occurred when the Mint accidentally punched the D Mint mark twice onto the die in slightly different positions, creating a visible D over D effect on the coin. When viewed under magnification combined with the small date design, this variety became one of the most desired coins of the 20th century. Collectors immediately began searching their pocket change for this elusive penny, and to this day, it remains one of the crown jewels of modern coin collecting. To fully appreciate the 1960 Lincoln cent, we have to look at the technical and artistic side as well. The obverse features the famous bust of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. His initials VDB appear on the shoulder cut of Lincoln just above the rim, a feature that was restored in 1918 after being removed in 1909. The reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo, symbolizing unity and respect for one of America's greatest leaders. Each detail from the steps to the columns was meant to capture the dignity of the monument and the legacy of Lincoln. The Mint used bronze composition for the 1960 cent, which consisted of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving it that classic reddish tone that collectors love. This composition had been standard since 1909 and would remain until the shift to copper-plated zinc in 1982. Each 1960 cent weighs 3.11 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and although billions were made, the differences between small and large dates made some far more collectible than others. Over time, coin grading services and numismatic experts categorized the varieties, carefully identifying the small date and large date by specific markers. For example, in the small date, the top of the 6 aligns almost evenly with the top of the 9, and the 0 is smaller and sits higher in the large date. The 6 drops below the 9, and the 0 is larger and rounder. These subtle differences became essential for collectors sorting through rolls and bags of 1960 pennies in search of treasure. Let's talk about production numbers. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 586 million 1960 small date cents and over 1.6 billion large date cents. The Denver Mint struck more than 1.5 billion 1960 D large date cents and about 420 million 1960 D small date cents. But the numbers don't tell the full story, because among these billions were rare, doubled dies repunched, mint marks and die cracks that gave each piece its own uniqueness. By the mid-1960s, the small and large date varieties had become a hot topic in numismatic circles. Coin magazines of the time were filled with debates about which was rarer and which had better long-term investment potential. Collectors realized that while the small date was scarcer overall, it was the 1960 D small date that had the real magic due to its doubled die and repunched mint mark, making it worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars in top condition. Today, the value of a 1960 Lincoln penny depends heavily on its variety, and condition-circulated coins are worth only face value. But uncirculated examples, especially small date varieties, can fetch significant premiums. A 1960 D, small date, D over D, doubled die penny in mint state can sell for several $1,000s. Certified examples graded by PCGS or NGC have brought record prices at auction because collectors prize the bold doubling and rarity beyond its value. Though, the 1960 penny holds historical meaning. It represents a period when the United States Mint was still using manual processes that allowed small but fascinating variations to occur. And it bridges two eras of American life: the calm of the 1950s and the transformation of the 1960s. Every 1960 penny, whether small or large date, is a reminder of precision art and human craftsmanship before the complete automation of minting. Even the proof versions struck in Philadelphia tell part of this story. The 1960 proof sets include both small date and large date proofs, which were minted for collectors. Only these mirror finish coins reveal the finest details of the Lincoln design and are highly sought after today. Collectors can easily identify the small date proofs because of the delicate alignment of the digits and the thinner 0. Many enthusiasts even attempt to complete full sets containing both proof and business strike varieties as the decades passed. The fame of the 1960 Lincoln cent continued to grow. Coin collectors of all ages studied the differences, learned to spot the small date, and treasured the story behind it. Numismatic educators often use the 1960 penny as a teaching tool, showing how minor design changes and minting errors can turn an ordinary coin into a historical masterpiece. So the next time you see a worn Lincoln cent from 1960, take a closer look, because hidden in its copper surface may be a story of change, adaptation, and American history. It's more than just a coin. It's the story of how even the smallest detail can leave a lasting mark on the world of money. The 1960 Lincoln penny is not just another piece of pocket change. It's a living artifact, a collector's legend, and a timeless symbol of American minting history. And as collectors and historians continue to search for the perfect 1960 small date, or the elusive D over D doubled die, the legacy of this coin remains strong, proving once again that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories, and that 1 cent can indeed be worth a fortune in history, passion, and pride. Imagine holding a small piece of metal that carries the story of a nation, a story of transition, struggle, innovation, and value beyond its face. A coin that has witnessed the heart of American change and represents both the glory and confusion of its minting history. This is not just a penny. This is the 1974 Lincoln cent, a coin that was supposed to be ordinary, but turned out to be one of the most controversial and fascinating coins in American numismatic history. Today, we are diving deep into the world of the 1974 Lincoln penny, where copper turned to aluminum and history took an unexpected twist. The year was 1974. The United States was in the middle of economic changes, inflation was rising, the Vietnam War had recently ended, and the cost of producing even the smallest denomination coin was becoming a serious concern. The United States Mint was faced with a pressing problem. The cost of copper had increased to such a level that the 1-cent coin made almost entirely of copper was more expensive to produce than its actual face value since 1909, when the Lincoln cent was first introduced to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It had been composed primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. But by the early 1970s, the metal markets were shifting fast, and the government began looking for cheaper alternatives to keep the penny in circulation without losing money. In 1973 and early 1974, the Mint began conducting experiments with different metal compositions that could potentially replace the traditional bronze alloy. One of the most notable experiments involved aluminum. The United States Mint struck more than 1.5 million experimental aluminum cents at the Philadelphia Mint in 1974. These coins were lightweight, silver-colored, and highly resistant to corrosion. They were meant to solve the issue of high copper prices and to make coin production more economical. However, what was meant to be a smart move soon became one of the biggest controversies in coinage history. The aluminum cents of 1974 were never officially released into circulation. Despite the Mint's efforts to get approval from Congress, the plan faced heavy opposition from various industries, including the vending machine companies and the medical field. Aluminum coins posed mechanical problems for coin-operated machines and also interfered with X-ray detection in hospitals, since aluminum was hard to detect in medical scans. The Secret Service and the Treasury Department soon ordered all aluminum cents to be returned and destroyed. However, not all of them made it back. Some pieces mysteriously escaped destruction. These 1974 aluminum cents became legendary in the numismatic world as coins that were never meant to exist. They were considered government property, and their possession was illegal. Yet a few managed to surface years later, sparking massive legal battles and capturing the imagination of collectors around the world. One of the most famous cases involved a 1974 D aluminum cent, reportedly handed out by a Mint official at the Denver Mint. It was later discovered, and caused an enormous stir in the coin community when its owner attempted to auction it off. The government intervened, claiming the coin was never authorized for release and thus remained federal property. Beyond the aluminum cent controversy, the regular 1974 Lincoln penny still had its own story of significance. The regular issues of the 1974 penny were struck in bronze, continuing the same composition used since 1962, which was 95% copper and 5% zinc. The coins were minted in large quantities across 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark. The Denver issues bore a small D under the date, and the San Francisco Mint continued producing proof coins marked with an S for collectors. The total mintage of 1974 pennies reached over 14 billion, making it one of the most common coins of the era. But among these billions of coins, some varieties and errors still make the 1974 penny particularly interesting to collectors. Collectors often look for double die errors, repunched mint marks, and off-center strikes in 1974 pennies. These varieties can add considerable value depending on their condition and rarity. Some 1974 proof coins with high-quality strikes and deep cameo surfaces remain especially valuable. Today, the design of the Lincoln cent in 1974 continued to feature Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the obverse, the design, first introduced in 1909, remained one of the most enduring and beloved images in American coinage. On the reverse, the coin still bore the Lincoln memorial designed by Frank Gasparo, which had been introduced in 1959, replacing the wheat ears design. The Lincoln Memorial reverse not only honored the nation's 16th president, but also subtly featured a tiny image of Lincoln's statue within. The memorial, a detail many collectors appreciate for its craftsmanship and symbolism, 1974 drew to a close. The debate over coin composition continued. The Mint's aluminum experiment was officially abandoned, and the bronze penny continued to be struck for another 8 years. It wasn't until 1982 that the United States finally transitioned to a copper-plated zinc composition in an effort to save production costs. This change marked the end of an era for the copper penny and made earlier coins like the 1974 cent a tangible reminder of the time when copper ruled America's smallest coin denomination. For coin historians, the 1974 Lincoln cent represents more than just a date. It stands as a turning point between tradition and practicality, between value and policy, between the public's trust and the government's economic strategy. It is a coin that tells a story of industrial challenge, political debate, and public reaction, all packed into a piece of metal, smaller than an inch in diameter. Over the years, millions of collectors have studied the mysteries surrounding the 1974 aluminum cents, their disappearance, their few surviving examples, and their ongoing legal controversies. The mere mention of a 1974 aluminum penny today sparks curiosity and excitement in numismatic circles as experts continue to discuss whether more undiscovered examples might still exist. For those who collect Lincoln cents, the 1974 penny serves as a reminder that every coin has a story, a history shaped by human decisions, market forces, and historical events. It embodies the artistic legacy of Victor D. Brenner, the economic challenges of the 1970s, and the unending fascination with small objects that carry immense historical weight. When you hold a 1974 Lincoln penny, you are not just holding a coin, you are holding the memory of a time when America stood between old traditions and modern economics, between copper and aluminum, between the past and the future. The 1974 penny symbolizes endurance. It symbolizes how something so small can reflect the decisions of an entire nation. And that is the true beauty of numismatics, the ability to see history not through pages of books, but through the small pieces of metal that passed through the hands of millions of people, each coin telling a silent story of where we have been and where we are going. The 1974 Lincoln penny is one of those stories, timeless, mysterious, and unforgettable. Have you ever held a simple 1973 Lincoln penny in your hand and wondered if that little piece of copper could hold a secret from the heart of American history? A story of artistry, politics, economy, and transformation that shaped not only the way we spend but also the way we remember the legacy of one man and the evolution of a nation. Today we are diving deep into the incredible world of the 1973 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary to most eyes, but for collectors, historians, and enthusiasts, it represents a chapter full of change, challenge, and hidden value. Welcome to this journey through time where we uncover the untold story behind every curve, every mint mark, and every copper grain that made the 1973 penny one of the most fascinating coins of modern American minting. The year was 1973. The United States was in a period of transition. The Vietnam War was nearing its end. The Watergate scandal was shaking. The foundations of trust and inflation was beginning to creep into the economy. In the middle of these political and social shifts, the United States Mint continued its steady mission to produce coins for a growing population, and among those coins was the Lincoln cent, a denomination that had already been circulating for more than 6 decades since its first release in 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the coin had become a national icon, carrying Lincoln's portrait as a symbol of unity, progress, and the American dream. By 1973, the Lincoln cent was already on its 3rd material generation. Earlier pennies were made of nearly pure copper, but due to the rising cost of metal and industrial demands, the composition had changed in 1962 to a blend of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, making the 1973 penny one of the last to retain that true classic copper look and feel. Collectors later looked back at these coins with nostalgia, because by 1982 the composition would change drastically to a copper-plated zinc core, which made the earlier coppers more valuable both historically and sentimentally. In 1973, the United States Mint produced the Lincoln penny at 3 primary facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each one with its own distinct identity and purpose. The Philadelphia Mint produced pennies without any mint mark. A long-standing tradition for that branch, the Denver Mint marked its coins with a D and was known for mass production, ensuring the circulation needs of the Midwest and Western regions were met, while San Francisco had a dual role. It produced proof coins for collectors and occasionally regular issues, though in 1973 its main contribution came through the beautiful mirror-finished proof sets that today are treasured for their precision and brilliance. The production numbers were immense. Philadelphia struck around 3 7 billion pennies. Denver produced over 3.5 billion, and San Francisco created more than 2.7 million proof coins. These figures might seem like ordinary mint output, but the real story lies within the differences between the dies, the minting errors, and the historical context that makes certain 1973 pennies exceptionally valuable. Collectors often search for double die obverses where the inscriptions such as Liberty or In God We Trust appear slightly doubled under magnification, a result of a misaligned die during the minting process. These varieties from 1973 are extremely rare, but when found, they can bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their clarity and condition. Another fascinating aspect is the striking quality. Itself, proof coins from San Francisco display a deep mirror finish with frosted designs on Lincoln's face and inscriptions, a hallmark of premium minting quality that gives collectors a sense of holding a piece of miniature art beyond the numismatic. Features. The 1973 penny tells a deeper story of how America viewed its money during a time of economic tension. The early 1970s marked the end of the Bretton Woods system. The dollar was no longer tied to gold, and inflation was beginning to show its effects, yet, despite all these challenges, the penny remained a symbol of stability, something every American could hold in their pocket, a link to their nation's past, and the great leader whose face had become a reminder of perseverance and equality. The artistry of Victor David Brenner's design also deserves admiration. Brenner was an immigrant who admired Lincoln profoundly and wanted his design to capture not just the image of a president, but the moral strength of a man who had guided a divided nation through its darkest years. His initials VDB, which first appeared prominently on the 1909 version, later caused public debate and were removed only to be quietly reinstated on the coin's reverse in 1918, and by 1973, they remained as a small but proud mark beneath Lincoln's shoulder, a subtle tribute to the artist's legacy. Examining the reverse side, we see the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to replace the wheat ears that had graced the back of the penny. For half a century, this design by Frank Gasparo was more than symbolic. It was a representation of modern America, honoring Lincoln's lasting impact through architecture, while celebrating the unity of the nation that stood behind him under magnification. Collectors often admire how even the seated statue of Lincoln is visible within the memorial, a tiny yet remarkable detail that demonstrates the precision of the minting process in an era before advanced digital engraving. When discussing the 1973 penny, we cannot ignore its place in the broader narrative of American coinage. It was minted just 6 years before the U.S. Mint transitioned to the Susan B. Anthony dollar, and nearly a decade before the Lincoln cent would change its metal content forever. This means the 1973 penny stands as one of the last classic copper issues representing an end of an era. The sound, the weight, and the reddish tone of genuine copper gave the coin a character that later issues lost, and that is one reason collectors continue to cherish them for those entering the world of coin collecting. Understanding grades and conditions is vital. The 1973 penny in circulated condition may hold only face value, but in uncirculated or mint state grades, the value rises sharply. Coins graded MS65 or higher, especially those with full red luster, are highly desirable proof examples. With deep cameo contrast can fetch impressive prices, especially when certified by leading grading services like PCGS or NGC. The grading scale from 1 to 70 helps determine a coin's perfection, and even a slight mark or tone difference can alter its worth dramatically. The market for 1973. Lincoln pennies has grown steadily over the years with the rise of online auctions and collector platforms. Certain error coins such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and double dies have sold for hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars. These errors are not just minting mistakes, they are unique fingerprints of history that turn ordinary coins into treasures. Now imagine a time capsule from 1973, an era when gasoline cost around 40 cents per gallon, when the average home was priced below $30,000, and a single penny still carried enough value to buy something small but real. That same penny now represents a bridge between generations, a tangible piece of the past that connects the economic struggles of the 70s with the digital age of today. Each time you look at a 1973 Lincoln penny, you are not just seeing copper and design. You are holding a story of resilience, craftsmanship, and continuity, from the vision of Victor David Brenner to the minting precision of the United States Mint. This coin captures the spirit of a nation. in motion evolving yet never forgetting its roots.